Hey, let's bring in our guest joining us this hour. Michael Jaafar is here. He's a national trial attorney. Michael, listen, we're listening to the sister testifying here, and she's given some life to the victim here, but also I feel like she's given some life to Monica as well. What do you make of her testimony thus far?
Yeah, so far it's been kind of agnostic in terms of how the jury would weigh in favor or against the defendant. At the end of the day, I really like that Cimentelli Power charged that amount, and I actually wrote that down on the break. I'm going to be saying that to my staff. I think she's been kind of agnostic, but we'll see. I think obviously by the end of her testimony, she's going to be laying on the red meat against Cimentelli. But if I had my prediction, the state, because of how badly the state hates Monica Cimentelli, I'm sure that hatred has poured into the sister. You're going to see it coming out through the rest of the testimony, because they would have made her hate Cimentelli as well. So we'll see what happens.
All right, I can't wait to see what happens. Michael, stand by and take. All right, before we go back into court, let's bring back in trial attorney Michael Jaafar to discuss. Michael, some of what you talked about earlier is playing out at this point. You can see some of the anger boiling up in this witness, although I'm not so sure how powerful her testimony is at this point.
Yeah, so far it's not. Listen, the venom is coming out because the state really hates Monica Cimentelli, but it stands to be seen how valuable her insight is going to be into Monica Cimentelli. Because here's the thing, Monica Cimentelli, and I'm shocked by this, is like a caricature of a defendant. Right? She's falling into all of the old, you and I always joke about law school exam questions, right? And hey, a law school exam professor would never give you a criminal defense fact pattern of the cheating ex-spouse, the cheating spouse had a life insurance policy, and right after the death of the victim, she went about like having a professional business getting access to said life insurance policy and bringing in everybody. She was just very professional. So she's a caricature of that person. So at the end of the day, Monica Cimentelli's sister-in-law, former sister-in-law, is I don't know how much insight she's going to have into that part of her world, but at the end of the day, it is coming out. I think the state is going to really twist the knife now in the balance of her testimony, because what everybody is looking at is, what were you doing? What was your life like? How were you conducting yourself before he died and immediately after he died? And her insight is going to be in that regard, because the state wants the jury to hate her. And why not bring in the family member of Fabio Cimentelli to have the jury hate her as much as we hate her?
But Mike, are they relying too much on that? Because you say, hey, everybody's waiting to see what you did before, what you did after. What I'm waiting for is the connection to the murder, the connection to the guys who have been convicted of this murder. That's what I'm not seeing.
Austin, Baker, and the life and the email about the access to the security system. If I'm the defense attorney, what's the most inconvenient fact I have to contend with in this case? It's actually not Austin, because I don't think Austin actually ever spoke to Monica Cimentelli. I think the most inconvenient fact is the fact that Monica Cimentelli gave access to Baker to the security system that he then covered up after the murder. Those are the most inconvenient facts, but I think the state can't help themselves because of how much because if they were in the strategy, if I was in that strategy room, I think the conversation was, we hate the fact that Baker is going to fall on the sword. That definitely creates reasonable doubt. How do we get the jury to we know she killed him. How do we do it? We have to have the jury see the caricature that she is. She's been flouting in front of our faces for months, for years now. She just doesn't care. She's in Vegas. She's on trips. We have to have them hate her. As in their pretrial motions, Michael, they were screaming at her and her attorneys because of the way she was manipulating Baker when she was in prison. So I think they already had this plan drafted, and they have these witnesses, and they're like, you know what? Why not? Let's just throw it all, have the jury hate her, and then that way, when we have to contend with Baker one day, we can say, well, none of it is relevant because he's just falling on the sword for her. That's what I think.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful theory, because my theory is their case is not as strong as they'd like it to be. I think part of that reason is Baker, as you mentioned. All right, we'll bring back on our guest still to discuss, trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, man, this is playing out exactly as you said. They just want this jury to hate her. And I tell you, just listening to this, I mean, again, the suggestion is not that she cremated him because she was trying to hide evidence or something. We see that from time to time. No, here, they just want to point out that she was just being mean. And She did this against the wishes of the family, and she put the ashes in a temporary spot and has done nothing with those ashes. A man she's supposed to have loved.
She twisted the knife at the end of her testimony. Michael, I can think of at least 2 sound bites in the last 5 minutes that the state is going to bring up in their closing arguments to remind the jury of who they are. Whenever you see one litigant focusing really heavily on one side of their case, is to distract from the other side of their case. They know that when the defense takes a case, Baker's going to take the stand, and Baker's going to say what we know he's going to say. So the state wants to lay the foundation to the jury so that when in their closing arguments, they're going to tell the jury, as we all predict, hey, we know that Baker said she didn't do it. However, here's why she's lying. They want you to remember, and Mirella Cimentelli is going to give them that fodder, because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is the jury is going to weigh the fact that, hey, you had this affair, and then if what you want us to believe is true, if Baker really murdered your beloved husband, why have you been so close to him ever since the time you knew that he killed him, that since he admitted he killed him, he's in jail, you're sending him messages, why are you doing it? The state must be right, that you must have been putting this thing together. And we hate you so much already from how you treated his remains. You cremated him. He might not wanted to have been cremated. So, I mean, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I think that the state is doing a fantastic job. They really hate, because you know what? This woman put him on a cat and mouse chase, right? She, according to them, she killed her husband for money and to be alone. And she made them go on this cat and mouse chase. And she even took her daughter's name off the contribution donation list. Nuts.
Yeah, and Mike, you know, I don't think, and I want to know if you agree with me, I don't think as far as forensically, as far as even the text messages and the timeline of that, and we do have the thing where she sent him the information about a month before the murder. She sent him the information about the security information, but that's about all they have. It's not the strongest case from that perspective. But as you're saying, I think with all this information, and then Baker has the nerve to show up at the house at that time, and I think people got a vibe. Mom certainly got a vibe, and I think all that, again, plays into what you're talking about.
Yeah, when you mentioned that he came to it went over my head, and then you said it. So did she really said, my God, I can't believe it. This woman just had literally no regard. She just didn't care. She just wanted, according to the state, she wanted to be rid of her husband. She wanted to cash in. She wanted to be alone with Baker. She must have really been in love with Baker, because at the end of the day, she stayed close to Baker even after he admitted to killing her husband in her home.
Yeah, Mike, what's interesting is he sends her a text, and they talked about this in their opening statement, saying, I'm sorry. And they're using that to suggest that he did this on his own. But as you said, if you're going to do that, the inference that she continues to have affairs with him, continues to travel with him, just flies in the face of the idea that she didn't know.
Yeah, the state believes that, and they're making me believe it. I think they're going to make the jury believe it. At the end of the day, it really comes down to the state, to the defense. I want to see how they explain this fact pattern, how they explain 2 things: why she stayed close to Baker, and why Austin was told XYZ by Baker, but why did she give him access to the security system? So I can't wait to see how this plays out.
I can't see it going any other way on this point. All right, Michael, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Truly appreciate it. Have a great weekend.